Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is with great pleasure to welcome you to the German Offshore-Wind Initiative Summit today. We are honored to have invited government officials, leaders of the industry to share valuable insights on important agenda that has effect reaching across multiple industries. The summit today are divided in two halves. Earlier today, we have addressed on how to embrace RE100 with offshore wind. And now, we will focus on how to build and strengthen local offshore wind industry chain. Before we start the actual agenda, I would like to sincerely invite a few guests of honor for opening remarks. Firstly, member of the Executive Board of German Foundation Offshore Wind Energy, Dr. Martin Skiba. Since Dr. Skiba is in Germany, he has kindly pre-recorded his message for us.
Li Hong, dear Dr. Cheng Wai-Yu, dear Dr. Chang Chi-Lin, dear Mr. Limberg, dear speakers and guests. As a board member of the German Offshore-Wind Foundation, it's a pleasure for me to welcome you again to this great event organized by the German Offshore-Wind Initiative, a project powered by the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. On behalf of the German Offshore-Wind Foundation, I would like to congratulate Taiwan for all the efforts in green energy, especially for the development of offshore wind. It is a very exciting period for offshore wind in Taiwan, as the Round 3 auction is active now. As Taiwan poses many favorable offshore wind sites compared with other regions in Asia Pacific, it is only logical for Taiwan to develop a strong supply chain to accommodate this growing industry. Through the latest Round 3 auction, we learned that there are significant opportunities for an international collaboration. Since it is still a relatively young industry in Taiwan, I am sure that Taiwan can benefit from experiences that German companies have acquired from earlier projects. On the other hand, as Taiwan has always been extremely strong in ICT vertical integrations, by using technologies such as AR, VR, AI, communications, IoT, cybersecurity, and others, we are excited to see what new innovations can be fitted to the offshore wind industry in the future. Therefore, collaboration between Taiwan and Germany is one time more the key success factor for building a sustainable green future. The German Offshore Wind Initiative aims to help link the supply chain of both countries in a meaningful way. To do so, it is important to analyze strengths and weaknesses, to identify gaps, and to share lessons learned and best practices, and of course, simply to connect companies from both countries. Against this background, I wish you now fruitful discussions, and I do hope to see some of you one day in Taiwan again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Skiba. And now, I would like to sincerely invite the Chief Representative and Executive Director of the German Trade Office Taipei, Mr. Axel Limberg, on stage for his opening remarks. Let's welcome Mr. Limberg.
Dear Mr. Lee, Deputy Director General, Bureau of Energy, dear Robert Loh, Executive Director, Invest Taipei, dear Mr. Skipper, online, dear speakers, German company representatives, ladies and gentlemen, Dacha Hao. It's a great pleasure for me to participate in today's summit organized by the German Offshore-Wind Initiative. Sustainability and energy autarky have become decisive topics in the 21st century and are now more pressing than ever before, especially for economies with a high energy demand, such as those of Taiwan and Germany, becoming more crisis-resistant by being less dependent on foreign energy sources. This will be crucial for future technological and social improvement and development. Before implementing other measures such as storage capacities, smart grids, hydrogen solutions, or decentralized energy systems, the basis of a successful energy transition is the fast expansion of renewable energies as a source for the needed energy. Offshore wind belongs of those energy sources with the greatest potential worldwide in respect of generation potential and also in regard of cost per generated kilowatt hour. Many Western companies have changed their policies over the recent years, setting ambitious carbon neutral targets and are pushing ahead with expansion of renewable energies and, of course, offshore wind energy. Just 3 weeks ago, a US offshore wind auction set the basis for the installation of 30 gigawatt offshore capacity by 2030. The UK currently plans to double the frequency of renewable energy tenders by holding auctions every year to significantly accelerate its energy transition efforts. And in the European Union, France and Germany are pushing their capacities. By end of 2026, France is expected to reach an offshore wind capacity of 3.7 gigawatt, and Germany has already installed about 7.8 gigawatt of capacity, and this is placing Germany the third largest offshore wind producer worldwide. Now is also the time for the Taiwanese government to make things happen by approving prepared projects and by facilitating the further planning and realization of these projects. Through a joint active and hands-on approach, we will move towards achieving our ambitious energy transition goals. German companies are ready and willing to assist. Only together with joint efforts we can make Taiwan more sustainable and less dependent on energy imports. We, the German Trade Office, believe that this summit will be an important knowledge exchange platform that can lay the foundation for intensified future bilateral cooperation. Now, I wish all of us a fruitful summit with many interesting highlights and a lot of new contacts to further improve and grow our business relations. Many thanks for your attention. Xie dacha.
Thank you, Mr. Lindberg. Please return to your seat. Next, let's welcome the Deputy Director General of the Bureau of Energy, Minister of Economic Affairs, Mr. Jing-Li Li, for his opening remarks. Please join me to welcome Director General Mr. Li.
Mr. Lindberg, the Chief Representative and Executive Director of the German Trade Office Taipei, and all the distinguished delegates from the offshore industry, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Bureau of Energy, I'm very glad to have the opportunity to be here to invite it to today's summit. And as we know, Taiwan is a small island and we are very short of indigenous energy resources. In Taiwan, 98% of energy supply rely on import. The indigenous energy resources are 2% only. Since such kind of energy situation, how to develop, how to increase the indigenous energy resources in Taiwan is one of the most crucial issues for the energy department. It is not only about the energy stability, but also the energy security and the energy safety. And one of the solutions is to develop wind energy in Taiwan, because we are very rich of the wind resources. But Taiwan is a small island. We don't have much room. We don't have much space to deploy so many onshore wind turbines. That's why the government are focused in how to develop the offshore wind. But we don't have any experience at the beginning, so we have to do it step by step. The government set a three-phase offshore wind development strategy to promote the offshore wind energy in Taiwan. In the phase one, we call it the demonstration incentive program, because at that time we don't have experience about the offshore wind. So the government provides the subsidies to encourage the pioneer investor to invest in Taiwan. And there are two projects get the consent of the government. One is the Formosa 1 project. The installed capacity is 128 megawatt, and this project has been accomplished and commissioned by year 2019. And the other is the Taipower's demo project. The installed capacity is 109 megawatt, and that project has been commissioned already. So right now in Taiwan, there are 237 megawatt offshore wind commissioned in Taiwan. That's the first stage, the first phase. We do the demonstration project. And then in the phase two, we call it the government set and zone application for planning project. The government, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, allocate 36 zones of potential, and the government released 5.5 gigawatt offshore wind capacity to encourage the international experienced offshore wind developer come to Taiwan. And after the selection process and the bidding process, there are 17 offshore wind projects get the consent of the government, and the total installed capacity is 5.6 gigawatt. And all these projects will be commissioned, will be accomplished before or by year 2025. That is our second phase project. And in order to ensure the sustainable offshore wind develop in Taiwan, the government continues to install, to open the market, to increase much more offshore wind energy in Taiwan. So right now we move on the phase 3 open market. We call it the zonal development project. The government will release 1.5 gigawatt offshore wind capacity annually from year 2026 to 2035. That means within the next 10 years, we will increase 15 gigawatt offshore wind energy in Taiwan. That's our strategy to promote the offshore wind in Taiwan. And today, in this session, we will focus on how to leverage this opportunity to enhance, to strengthen the local offshore wind industry capability. And in this session, there are 5 experts will share their experience. So I believe today is one of the best opportunity for Taiwanese experts to exchange the views, to share the experience, to dialogue face to face to the international experts about the offshore wind. So I believe everybody will have a very fruitful harvest. And finally, I wish today's session have a great success, and every one of you have a good health and a good life. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Director General. Please return to your seat. We also have a special video recording prepared by Commissioner Dr. Lin of the Department of Economic Development of Taipei City Government. Dr. Lin would like to give his warmest greetings to the guests today.
Skiba, Director Lin, Commissioner Yu, honorable speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The global trends of net zero emissions by 2050 was stated in Green Deal of the EU in 2019. For the next generations, Taipei welcomes these trends and join other nations, taking actions to ensure the progress. Since 2015, Melker has actively promoted green energy. One of the achievements is the solar panel capacity increases 12 times in 7 years. In addition, Taipei City government issued a series of sustainable action plans, such as Circular Taipei White Paper, SDGs Taipei City Voluntary Local Review, Sustainable Energy Policy White Paper. After the declaring 2050 net zero emissions in April last year, Taipei City government takes action to move forward. As Taipei passes the draft version of Taipei net zero emissions ordinance this month, Taipei is a very attractive city, welcoming your investment. The vision we share and learn from you in energy transition will make Taipei a greener city in the future. At last, all my best wish to today's conference accomplish success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. And now is our group photo time. Staff members, please prepare the stage. 请工作人员协助为大合照做准备。I would like to request the following guests to be on the stage for our group photo. The first guest is representative of German Offshore-Wind Initiative in Taiwan, Mr. David Chiang. Deputy Director General of Bureau of Energy, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Mr. Chun Li. Chief Representative and Executive Director of the German Trade Office Taipei, Mr. Axel Lindberg. The Executive Director of Invest Taipei Office, Department of Economic Development, Taipei City Government, Mr. Robert Low. General Manager of Fishna, Mr. Markus Schuler. Executive Vice President of CSBC, Mr. Zhiming Cho. General Manager, Industrial Services and Cybersecurity of TÜV Rheinland, Mr. James Liu. Assistant Professor of National Taiwan University, Dr. Shun Han Yang. Sales and Business Development Manager of Deutsche Windtechnik, Mr. Hao Wei Chu. Project Manager, E3, Mr. Po Chen Huang.请现场的摄影师和媒体就定位，我们即将进行大合照。Is everyone ready? Don't forget to take off your mask. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let's also take a picture with your right thumb up. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you very much. Please return to your seats, and we will now begin with the program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with our great pleasure to invite the first keynote speaker, Project Manager, E3, Mr. Po Chen Huang. Please join me to welcome Mr. Huang.
Hello. Okay, so good afternoon, colleagues and friends here. My name is Po Chen Huang. I'm from the Thousand Wind Turbines Promotion Office. And this office's main task is to supporting the Bureau of Energy to promote the wind policy in Taiwan. We provide data collections, we do the case studies, we also providing some kind of like policy advice to the government in order to reach the policy's goal. So this is my outline today. First, I will give you guys a brief introduction about Taiwan's offshore wind's potentials. And then I will deep into the promotion policy, the policy framework of Taiwan's offshore winds structures that the Deputy General Lee have just briefly introduced to you guys. I will give you guys a more detailed information. So this picture that you see here is made by E.SUN's engineer, and then it's quite clear that in Taiwan, the hotspot for the offshore wind developments were focused on the west coast of the Taiwan, from Taoyuan, Hsinchu, Miaoli, Taichung, Changhua, Yunlin, these regions. And if we calculated all the region and remove the prohibited construction areas, the total capacity will probably go to 20 gigawatts. And in order to promote the policy, the government, the Minister of Economic Affairs, and the Bureau of Energy have designed this three-phase policy that you just heard from the Deputy General have said. So in the demo project, this phase, the government want to test, because we don't have any experience, so the government want to test whether the offshore wind project is feasible here in Taiwan from the financial perspective, technology perspective, but also the most important is the legal perspective. How does the government's framework can organize together in order to conveniently, fastly to build up the project here in Taiwan Strait. And so we have two demo projects just finished, 2019, Formosa 1, 2021, Taipower 1. And then later on, we jump into the phase 2. In this phase, the government wants to attract more international developers and local partners to join the energy transition journeys here in Taiwan. So in 2018, the Minister of Economic Affairs just completed capacity allocation through selections and auctions mechanisms. So in total, we hope that in 2025, we will have 5.5 gigawatts of capacity be built and will commercially operate here in Taiwan Strait. And later on is the zonal development, start from 2026 to 2035. And just as the deputy said, each year we will have 1.5 gigawatts to release, and we hope that today maybe we'll have some developers. We welcome you guys to join this process. Also the local supply chain partners. We think that the government wants to upscale the whole industry's scale. So yeah, we'll welcome everyone to keep focused on Taiwan's market. So in this page, I'll just show some pictures about the outcome of the demo incentive program. Above is Formosa 1's wind power plant, and the capacity is 128. It's located in Miaoli area. If you guys have some time in Saturday, in weekends, just drive to Zhunan, this county, and you can see this whole big wind farm over there. I think it's quite good, and the seafood over there is quite good to eat. And then at the bottom here is the Taipower's wind farm, finishing last year, 2021, and total capacity is 108 megawatts, and located in Changhua region, but sadly, it's very hard to see it from the coast, okay, because it's a little bit far from the coast. And here is the phase 2, zone of potential. These slides, just want to show you guys where is the wind farm located in the future. It's quite clear that the key spot, the hot spot is in the Changhua area, the place that the water depth is around 40 to 50 meters. And there's one project in the north, in the Miaoli area, is called Formosa 2, just outside the Formosa 1. And the total capacity is 5.5. And in order to reach the policy goal, which is 2025 total offshore wind capacity go to 5.5. Bureau of Energy, E3, our office, and the developers have very close cooperations network. Every week or every month, we will have a meeting to discuss that whether they have facing some kind of a legal situation, the port management, and some like local constructions, local partnership issues, and yeah, the government try very hard to figure out all the administration's process and to reach the goal, 2025, 5.5 gigawatts for the second phase. And now we go to the third phase, which starts from 2026. And the Minister of Economic Affairs and Bureau of Energy have these four key ideas to promote phase 3. First is to enlarge the capacity, annually 1.5 gigawatts. And the next one is two-stage selection process. The government will want to check that whether this developer have the capability to build the wind farm on time, have a good quality. So two-step. First is capability review, and then we go through the bidding process. The third idea is flexible IRP option. I guess most of people today were quite interested about these ideas. The government still want the local supply chain to join the market. So the government have listen the market's demands and have some kind of like more flexible item design, flexible quantity design for the developers to join the market. And the last, to enhance the competitiveness. So every developer, they only can have 5 megawatts the capacity to join the market. We want that more diverse developers can come to Taiwan or join Taiwan's development. So in the last summer, 2021 summers, the government has released two main regulations. This one is the first one, the mechanism of application and joint review. The reason why they released this regulation is to make sure that the potential wind farm locations won't overlap some other ministries, other government agencies' sensitive sea areas. So the BOE and E3s will review their applications, and then the Minister of Economic Affairs will hold this joint event, these joint meetings. Like we will invite DOD, Minister of Defense, and then the Minister of Fishery. We will talk about whether this wind farm's location is clear. If this wind farm didn't overlap any sensitive area, then the wind farm's application will be approved. And at the next stage, they will go to EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment stage. After they finished, the Minister of Economic Affairs will start to this bidding process. As we mentioned earlier, that we will start the construction in 2026. However, this year in the quarter 4, we will start the first round bidding process for total 3 gigawatts. And as you can see, the government right now have designed has focused on 2026 to 2031. We will plan like 3 rounds of bidding process, each process with 3 gigawatts. And start from 2030, for the 2032 to 35, the government will keep thinking about the technology change, whether we should provide more flexible IRP items or can introduce like floating issues. The government will keep thinking, and all the idea will depend on the current situations, the current market's reactions. Okay. So at the end, I only have 1 minute. Okay, so we hope that in 2035, all the offshore wind sectors can contribute Taiwan to reduction the annual carbon to for like 38.8 million tons. And for the job opportunities, we estimate that in 2035, this industry can provide more than 47,000 job opportunities. And lastly, we hope that the foreign and domestic investment probably can approach 3.2 trillion NT dollars here in Taiwan. So yeah, today this is my speech, and hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Huang, for the keynote. Please return to your seat. Next, I would like to invite the Executive Vice President of CSBC, Mr. Zhiming Cho. Please join me to welcome Mr. Cho.
Good afternoon, all the friends who are very curious about the offshore. And I'm happy to provide my presentation today, which will cover the favorable semi-submersible floater and for offshore in Taiwan. And today I will have 4 outlines. The first one is a short brief of CSBC. The next one will be the offshore wind site. And the third will be indigenous design of Taiwan. And the last is the local supply. And from the picture, you can see that CSBC was founded in 1973. And CSBC was IPO in 2008. And we built more than 700 vessels, commercial vessels, since then. And from the left-hand side, you can see the government still take about 25% of the equity. And the right-hand side, you can see the turnover for the past 10 years. And you can see when during the economic recession and downturn of the shipping industry, the output is very low. And due to the shipbuilding is not so good for the past 10 years. And since then, CSBC tried to do the diversification program. And from the left-hand side, you can see from 2017, the commercial vessel take about more than 90% of the revenue. And from last year, you can see it changed because for the past few years, the government policy for indigenous program, defense program, and also the offshore energy program. And now CSBC decreased the commercial sector down to 20% last year. And you can see the bottom, that's the currency of the US dollars compared to Korean dollar and Japanese yen. And Taiwan dollar is very strong for the past year. So even though last year the shipping industry like Yangmin, Evergreen, and Wanhai, some people take more than 40 months bonus for salary. However, for CSBC, it's very difficult because we are the export company. When the currency is very not preferable to CSBC, it's not easy to survive in the commercial vessel. However, even the commercial vessel is a yellow light. We see the green light of offshore. And this is the round 3 floating wind we suppose could be created in more than, I think, about 8 sites could be used the floating type of offshore wind turbine. And we estimate, because those figures were from the papers and media, and estimate it was about 8.4 megawatts for the round 3. But not this year, I guess maybe next year for 27, 29 to 31. And before that, I think for the local partner, we have to be prepared. And because the round 2, most of the design and total solution was provided from Europe. So for the local supplier, sometimes it's difficult to get used to that kind of practice or standard or how to do the business. Therefore, we think from the round 3, if it's possible for in this party to have our own design, then we can do the rest more easier. And that's why some people from Taiwan University and from CSBC, we initiated some proposal and provided to Ministry of Science and Technology, and to create one program, and which will provide the potential floating type turbine wind farm to the round 3, and create a more possible local supply and local content in Taiwan. And for this program, we have 4 objectives. The first one is the floater design and considering the dynamic analysis and control. Because floater, they will influenced by wave, current, and wind, and even sometimes a strong wind. So how the coupling relationship between floater and control system will be very important in our research this time. And second is the motion response. And third is the mooring system, because the floater is like an oil and gas drilling rig or the production platform. So it needs to be fastened, to be moved under the seabed. And this time we also have a mooring system, which is different from the round 2 for fixed type offshore wind farm. And from the left-hand side, you can see there's a American design, which is from PPI, and also the Norwegian design, the Japan design. And where is Taiwan's design? Where? And to make sure that our design can sustain the rough weather and sea state in Taiwan. So we have to do some comparison from the standard IEA model. And for the wind stability design, we do the motion simulation to calculate the righting arm and also the righting moment to secure that this kind of design can sustain a stable motion during the real sea state. And by this design, we also use our design. And this design, we call it tie-dart float. And we have to put some parameters, like how big the footprint of the floater could be. Because the footprint is very important due to a limited production facility in Taiwan. Maybe have to be close to the harbor side. For example, like a CSBC, we have a building dock. So the footprint width is one parameter, and also the vertical column provides the flow buoyancy to resist the motion of the wind and the current. And the last is the rolling angle, because when the floater have a different rotation angle, that will reduce the power generation from the nacelle. So we put some limitation and make it less than 10 degrees. We find below the red line, we find some suitable diameter, considering the footprint, like diameter of the column, and also within the control system can provide stable power. And from the right-hand side, you can see roughly the draft is about 20 meters, and the air draft is about 50 meters. The diameter may be 17 or 40 meters. And this kind of a floater, at this stage, we estimate it's about 5,000 tons per set. And regarding the mooring, because from the oil and gas industry, there are several kind of piling system. We have the suction pile, we have the weight pile, we have the drag pile, and also have the torpedo pile. And for Taiwan's special seabed condition, from our team, we also try to study the torpedo anchor, because it will provide a better resistance for the vertical force, and which is different from the drag anchor. And for this project, we also do some scale down test in National Taiwan University, and we will continue to test. And the local supply chain for the round 2, from the left side, you can see the fixed type foundation. And below the seabed is a pin pile. Then lower jacket, upper jacket, transition piece, and the tower. And all this supply chain, I think now Taiwan is kind of in saturation and is stable, and also have to reduce the cost and provide suitable profit and to compete with overseas competitors. And for the right-hand side is one example of the floating type. And you can see that's also a combination between fixed type, because besides of those vertical buoyancy column, you can still see some structure like truss structure. It's similar to fixed type. So for the left-hand side, the number 2, I think the supply chain is still some kind of mix-up between 1 and 2. And the third one is tied-up float. You can see even our team member provide this one. This is a laser print, I think. And this is our I think it's a prototype concept, but not decided yet. And you can see it's a lot of a flat structure and will be easier for production and maintenance, and also for transportation. And this one is the estimate of the round 3, because the round 3, I think each year probably will have 1.5 gigawatts. And 1.5 gigawatts means that in CSBC, for this kind of float, maybe we can provide only 500 megawatts per year. So this one will be our estimation at this moment. However, because Kaohsiung and Taipei, we still have many partners. So if 1 gigawatt could be provided for the floating, I think Taiwan, the some supplier, we still can work very closely. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chow. Please return to your seat. Next, I would like to invite the Sales and Business Development Manager of Deutsche Windtechnik, Mr. Hao Wei Chu. Please join me to welcome Mr. Chu.
Hello everyone, my name is Hao Wei Chu. I'm Taiwanese, and today I, on the behalf of Deutsche Windtechnik, would like to say thanks to GOI to give us a chance to share our company experiences and what we have done for the localization to focus our keynote today. So let's get rolling. Today my agenda will have 3 sections. The first one will our company profile, and to introduce what we have done for the project, then the localization. So for our company, so Deutsche Windtechnik is the company who provides operation and maintenance services. And we started the onshore turbine services about 2 decades ago. Then since 2013, we also think about we want to provide this service for offshore wind. Then at that time, if you want to start offshore wind O&M services, you have to start with the balance of plant, which is BOP plan. And which is also including like TP, foundation, cable, even the onshore, offshore substation. So just for your information, normally the turbine is services, O&M services provided by the OEM in the first 5 years in general, I would say. So at that time in 2013, we don't have the chance to take over the wind turbine. And likely, when the early of 2019, we got a chance to take the O&M service for the wind turbine. So in addition to the onshore and offshore wind turbine service, we also provide additional service, which is like we have the big training center in Europe. We also provide a QA, QC consulting, also the HSE in consulting. Just want to get to you to know more detail about our company. I would like to show you some numbers. The most promising number is on the right-hand side. We have right now, we got more than 7,600 turbines for the contract at hand for the O&M service. And just for information, last week we also got a big contract for the O&M service in Germany, which is including 152 turbine services. So that's manning 6,600 is manning onshore turbine, and for offshore turbines, around like 500 turbines. And right now in Taiwan, in our Taiwan office, we have around 30 employees, and in totally all around the world, we have more than 2,000 employees. As I said, we are a German company, and we have a great success in our offshore and onshore O&M services. So we expand our office all around Europe. In addition to that, in 2018, when the offshore wind market is booming up in America, also in Taiwan, we opened our subsidiary there. So that's the reason why I am here right now, because we have our subsidiary and we provide our service right now in Taiwan. And of course, in the coming open markets, maybe in APEC region, for example, like in Japan or in Korea, we will also have our plan there. So what we are able to do, today I just want to show you, there is numbers as also picture on the top of it, which I also put a flag on it. Just want to show you what we are normally can do in Europe, also what we are currently doing in Taiwan. So for Taiwan, the scope slip you can see from the number 2 to 5, which is like a foundation. We give the O&M service, also the substation, subsea scope. The unique selling points compared to others O&M services, we also provide a wind farm management. This is the package number 5, which is simply to say, once the offshore wind farm is finished, complete installation, we can directly take over it. So we provide marine coordination, we provide OCC, we also provide technical management. And like I say, for the package number 1 for the wind turbine, because the time-wise, we need to wait for 5 years, then we can have the chance to take over it. So just quickly jumping into the project, I think most of you already know about the Union project. We start our O&M services for the Union project. Just quickly look through, have a 640 megawatts with monopile, Siemens Gamesa 8.0 megawatt turbine type. And right now they have 2 substations, one is in Taixi, another one is in the Sihu. And right now it's under construction. We already started our service for the offshore already. And this one just want to introduce how our O&M service scope slip. As I mentioned, for the wind turbine services, which is provided by OEM, which is Siemens. So the first 5 years, they were owned by the Siemens to provide this O&M service. And rest of it is under our scope. So Deutsche Windtechnik will take, for example, like subsea scope, like BOP scope, also the operation management. So we will use our group resources to execute all the scope. So this is contract-wise to show you how the scope slip for our Union project. So let's move to the last but not least, the most important points in today's section. So right now it's going to have the third phase auction in Taiwan. So a lot of people will put more focus on the localization. Just in this section, I would like to show you about what we have done and our experiences, also what our goal and basic concept behind that. First, I would like to show you about logistics CTV. We brought the European company to joint venture the local company in Taiwan. Then we find a shipyard in Taiwan to build the brand new with the Taiwanese flag CTV. And this CTV right now is called a prosperous one, Fengsheng 1号. They had a good track and good performance in the Union project. So we will use the same concept in coming also for the third round phase auction in Taiwan for the coming new project for that. In addition to that, we also brought the European experiences captain to Taiwan to train the local crew, also the local captain for the CTV. So right now we have the European captain with the Taiwanese captain team up together to execute our project for Yunlin. And second, about this subsea scope, because from our European experiences, normally when you want to do the subsea scope, you will have sometimes you will face the local regulation, you will face the local license. So from our goal, we just would like to team up with the Taiwanese local company. So we provide a European surveyor to team up with the Taiwanese local company, use the Taiwanese local equipment to do the work for the subsea, especially just show you the ROV inspection. So in order to do that, we can provide more complete or more technical reports from the experiences of offshore surveyor, also combined with the local knowledge, local license, local equipment. Last point is about the BOP scope. we train a technician. We want to build up the strong our local team. So in the beginning, I show you we have the big training center in Europe because of COVID-19. So we don't have time to make our technician to go to Europe. So in the other way around, we just take the European technician to come to Taiwan to give so-called mentorship to train our local technician. So in the beginning, we want to 50% of the teammates, which is half from Europe, half from Taiwanese. And from the year on, so 70% and then 30%. So we are also looking to next year, the end of next year, will be complete all the specific team with all Taiwanese. And also this team will be capable to perform their work, and there will be a good team lead for this work as well. So that's all. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Please return to your seat. Next, I would like to invite General Manager of Fichtner, Mr. Markus Schüler. Please join me to welcome Mr. Schüler.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm from Fichtner Pacific Engineers, and we are the Taiwanese subsidiary of the German Fichtner Group, primarily active in roles of owner's engineering and technical advisory services in the energy and circular economy sector. And as an engineering company, so actually our mother company this year will turn 100 years old, so 100th anniversary, while we've been here active in Taiwan for 33 years now. And as an engineering company, for us, engineers were always well in demand, of course, but over the last years, actually, we saw that both here in Taiwan as well as in Germany, there is one species of engineer that is particularly scarce, and that's that of the electrical engineer. It's also quite a special species sometimes. And with the localization requirements for round 3, that is actually unlikely to change, also considering the parallel ongoing projects in fields of semiconductor, photovoltaic, and grid extension. But unlike this website here in the US, I'll not be able in the position to give you an easy way how to source a local electrician or electrical engineer, but I'll rather give you in my presentation the overview of the electrical scope of an offshore wind farm, how that fits together, what are the localization requirements of in round 3, and the related opportunities and challenges for the Taiwanese as well as the international industry. So let's start with the overview of the grid connection components. Starting from the point of generation, we have, of course, the wind turbine with its transformer and the switchgear, which feeds the electricity into the inter-array cabling. These are the cables that connect on a medium voltage level, the usually 5 to 6 wind turbines up to the offshore substation platform, OSS abbreviated. All strings from the wind farm come together at the OSS, and together there, the voltage is increased to a high voltage level in order to transfer the electricity via the subsea cable to the onshore substation then. This is usually required only if the wind farm is located further offshore. And in round 3, there have been wind farms, or in round 2, there have been wind farms that did not need an offshore substation, but there's also been the Changhua 1 and 2A project from erste, and also the Hailong projects that will require the offshore substation. At the onshore substation, then the electricity is transformed to the level that the grid operator will require at this point of interconnection, where it's fed through the land cable then to the substation that's operated by Taipower here in Taiwan. And as a new optional requirement in round 3, there's actually the battery energy storage system coming in that will be part, most likely, of the onshore substation. And I'll come later to this part. So if we go now through the typical engineering process for the electrical system, you would start with a conceptual design, going through basic design, detailed design, each with their design review iterations, and end up in the as-built design. But there's also another part which is more localized already, which is in order to comply with the TPC regulations, typically a Taiwanese licensed professional engineer will first do a system impact analysis, then go through the grid negotiations with TPC, discuss the actual technical features required in order to comply with the grid code, and then during the execution phase, this professional engineer will also sign off on the compliance of the equipment, that it's in line with the actual regulations and certifications required. So let's come to the main localization requirements for round 3 now. There are 2 mandatory requirements that are not only valid for the electrical scope, but actually cover the entire project scope. And these are that minimum 50% must be locally sourced for the engineering services, as well as the vessels for survey, transport, and installation. And in the case of the vessels, a developer can obtain an exemption if he can prove to BOE that it was impossible to source this locally, or at least with a local international joint venture. And regarding with respect to the vessels, it's especially relevant for the electrical scope that there are special vessels needed for the cable laying, and in most cases also for the installation of the offshore substation, because that's a heavier part in the project, usually heavier than the wind turbine and their foundations. So then there are optional localization requirements that are not mandatory, but for which a developer can score bonus points using locally sourced hardware. And if we go along the picture I showed you before, from offshore towards onshore, this is in the first place a subsea cable, so either inter-array grid cabling or the large export cable that would bring also the most bonus points, which are 5. And then for the offshore substation equipment, it's transformer, switchgear, and switchboard, which would each bring 3 points. Auxiliaries, UPS, and steel structure, 2 points each. And in the onshore area, there'll only be bonus points if the localized scope is higher than 60%, which also makes sense because during round 2, large parts of the onshore substations have already been built with a high local content by Taiwanese EPC contractors and also with Taiwanese components. And then, as mentioned before, 3 points you would get for battery storage if it's more than 4% of the installed capacity. With 500 megawatts installed wind farm capacity, that would be more than 20 megawatt, which is already quite a sizable battery storage. In total, that's 25 points, and that's a fourth of all the bonus points. In relation to the percentage of the cost share in the project, that's quite high. And it's also, of course, the logical consequence of the fact that BOE has already during round 2 achieved to localize quite a high share in the wind turbine as well as in the foundations packages. But is this realistic and is it feasible? Let's have a look at the potential Taiwanese suppliers who are available. And if you look at the subsea cable, there is actually not such a type of cable yet manufactured in Taiwan. There's only the chance that there will be a joint venture. Also, if we look at the steel structure of the offshore substation topside, that has not yet been manufactured here, and it's quite a complex piece of engineering. So this is actually with some question marks if this will materialize in round 3. The other equipment in the offshore substation, so transformer, switchgear, switchboard, AC/DC panels, There are potential suppliers in the market in Taiwan. However, they have not yet produced equipment fully here in Taiwan according to offshore specifications and got it certified. So there is still a question mark if this will materialize in round 3. For the onshore substation, of course, this is a mature market in Taiwan, so this will be easily achieved. Also for the battery energy storage system, there are international system integrators already operating in Taiwan. There are battery projects under execution right now, so this should probably be possible. Please note that this list is of course not exhaustive, and maybe also CSBC sees itself in the offshore substation top side here somewhere. That is a comment, and that brings me already to the summary of my presentation. So opportunities, of course, the biggest opportunity is the collaboration between international and local players. Large Taiwanese design companies are available, more than 4 large design houses, but also many small and medium engineering companies that can do the local content or can contribute to the local content. And then there is this chance, of course, for this increasing knowledge and transfer and further education in the offshore sector through this. But there's also the challenge that developers face now in preparing their bids, that there's a potential doubling of works just to ensure the local content. And that is something that, of course, each developer has to decide for their own, how to weigh the bonus points, how to do the strategy for this bid in autumn this year. Local hardware suppliers are probably currently in discussions with international OEMs to talk about licensing agreements, how to bring international technology into the Taiwan, with the Taiwan-made logo. And from an administrative point of view, there is, of course, still some room for interpretation of BOE's rules on these localizations. So developers are trying to nail this down right now, while at the same time negotiating with the contractors. And but this is nothing new. They are probably used to that from round 2 still. From technical point of view, there is not yet enough offshore design experience in the country, so that will grow over time now. And also not enough products to easily source from. But the regulations create, of course, the opportunity to develop the industry further now in round 2. And also the rated voltages that are typically applied in an offshore electrical system are not necessarily the same as they are in the Taiwanese market, in the onshore market. So there is some specifications and some codes and standards that will have to match. And that also leads us to the complexity in the fields of testing and certification, which requires, of course, time and also interfacing between the engineering companies and the manufacturers. Testing capacities inside the country are probably not yet set up to deal with this equipment that's needed in the offshore side. And all this has to be successfully negotiated, successfully arranged in a tight timeline to get an alignment between the potential technology suppliers, the developer, in order to feed into the auction bid in autumn. And on the seller's side, on the contractor side, actually, it's a seller's market. So everybody has to be aware of this, that these international contractors, OEMs, are facing difficult decisions. There are more developers in Taiwan now for round 3 than there are actual contractors in some of the fields, in the offshore substation, in some of the OEM equipment. And each contractor has now to consider, is the future market in Taiwan big enough for me to go this extra mile in round 3 with localization? Or do I have to focus on another market? Because already mentioned before, there is huge markets in Europe and also in the US upcoming. So these are the challenges that the developers also are facing. But along with big opportunities, and I'm looking really forward to see the results and how each developer managed this in round 3. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schüler. Please return to your seat. And now it's time for our final keynote speaker this afternoon. Please join me to welcome General Manager, Industrial Services and Cybersecurity of TÜV Rheinland, Mr. James Liu.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here to introduce our company and our service for the offshore wind power industry services. And we would like to share some of our company information, our service, and our offshore wind team, and also our selected reference case here to share with everybody. There are those parts that I would like to introduce here today. As a German-based company, we have all around the world, we have 56 country available for our service. We test, inspect, and certify. We support, we train, and we develop. So this is for Taiwan. Since 1976, it's almost 35 years ago. And in Taiwan, we have 400 employees. We have a close link to the industry. And now we have 4 locations here in Taipei, New Taipei City, and Taichung, Kaohsiung. About 10 accredited laboratories here in Taiwan. For the wind energy services, we have approximately 90 highly dedicated wind experts that can provide a comprehensive service for numerous wind projects worldwide. And the core business here, as you can see in Germany, is mainly focused on the type approval and the project certification. And here in Taiwan, we have local team here, many providers for the manufacturer certification, and some the manpower, the personal qualification and the training. Also the manufacturer surveillance service, QA/QC services. Our service covers the whole life cycle of the offshore wind farm, which include from the planning, design phases, manufacturing and construction phases, commission and operation phases, and also decommissioning phases. In the last few years, we here in Taiwan, we mainly provide, as mentioned, for the manufacturing and construction phases. This is regarding to the type approval, type project certification. Sorry, this is the project certification. This is mainly provided in our Germany, and our project certification service for offshore wind farm are divided into 7 modules, including assessment of site condition, assessment of the design basis, assessment of site-specific design, manufacturing surveillance, transport and installation surveillance, commissioning surveillance, and also periodical monitoring. For Taiwan offshore wind power, there is an additional requirement, a local requirement for the, especially for Taiwan, the condition of offshore wind farm in the Taiwan Strait is very special and different from those in Europe. And therefore, the Taiwan Authority has set a regulation which specify local requirement according to the CNS standard to be taken into account in design for project certification and the review of offshore wind farm in Taiwan. This is a certification for wind turbine type and the component for the turbine and the component certification. The accredited DAX, accredited certification body, we provide the testing and the certification for wind turbine and component. So there are all the testing item, inspection item here. I think this is the most important part that I would like to present today. The invest in Taiwan's offshore wind market are focused on the challenging time schedule, quality, and local content requirement. So based on those concerned for the current stage of the for the developer, our type and the project certification help those areas, and also our professional project management. Then the other is the training and qualification of the talent cultivation. This I would like to introduce our so-called global approach. We act as one team to unite our global team and the Taiwan local team with a clear law and working scope to close collaboration with our clients. And some of the job is led by Germany headquarters, and the local team will perform the related inspection and surveillance activity. So as you can see here, the project from the vendor survey to the expediting and the site construction supervision until the operation and maintenance, the whole life service here. This is regarding to global Global Wind Organization, GWO training provider certification. We TÜV Rheinland Taiwan here in local, we are a certification body of GWO. We support the local training provider to certify them according to GWO standard, so that locals training provider is certified to provide the GWO training course. The GWO established to ensure workers safe in the field of wind turbine, and the training standard set by GWO are to provide the technical staff with the safety, skill, and the knowledge they need to be trained to understand and reduce potential safety hazard associated with the turbine industry, wind turbine industry. This is a qualification of the personnel for the non-destructive testing according to ISO 9712. I would say most of the local service provider or local inspector, they were qualified or certified according to American standard before. But for the ISO 9712, that's quite new for the local inspector. In order to support the local talent cultivation, we provide all the non-destructive testing for those inspectors to be qualified. And this including visual inspection, penetrant testing, magnetic testing, ultrasonic testing, and also advanced NDT course. Here I would like to introduce about we working for the German-based developer, WPD, for the offshore wind project Guanyin in Taiwan. We do the design review, verification for the design. But this project has been rejected due to some permit. So we did not continue. We did not complete at the end. Here's also our service for WPD for supply chain and audit service for the wind park, Yunlin. So this is also actually the right global approach example that we provide from the vendor survey to the production inspection. So the lead, our German colleagues lead the project, and the team we call it the multi-nation team, drawn from Germany, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. And this is regarding to the manufacturer certification. According to the ISO 3834 and the EN 1090 certification for underwater foundation manufacturer in Taiwan, the most of underwater foundation manufacturer local supplier for the Taiwan offshore wind project, they have a background in manufacturing of pressure equipment or the steel structure. So they are more familiar with the domestic CNS standard or the American standard. But for Taiwan offshore wind project, these local suppliers should meet the international standard ISO 3834, the quality requirement for welding, and also the European standard EN 1090. That's a technical requirement for the steel structure. They were not clear enough on customer requirement or on how the European standard be applied. So it has been recognized that the many challenges were faced in the transformation and upgrading of the domestic offshore wind power industry. So this is also comparing to the overseas wind power manufacturer. Their production facility are highly automated and have standardized in manufacturing process and installation sequence. But Taiwanese vendor still need more time and experience to improve their manufacturing quality and efficiency. So from the last few years, there are more than 25 local suppliers of the underwater foundation for Taiwan offshore wind project toward the government's localization policy were obtained our ISO 3834 and EN 1090 certification to meet the project requirement as specified by the developers. Here's regarding to the construction supervision. Okay, here the last slide from my side. I would say the local manufacturer always think that the certification process is complicated and difficult due to they are not familiar with the quality requirement or the application of the international standard, or even they are as well lack of experience in manufacturing process. So we will continue to play an active role in those talent cultivation and manufacturer certification. We hope that we can do more to help strengthen and building the local supply chain in Taiwan, and also support them to enter to the international supply chain of the offshore wind power industry. So let's conclude my introduction here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. Please return to your seat. And now, our team will prepare the stage for our panel discussion. Please give us a few minutes to prepare the stage for the next session. I hope everyone has enjoyed the speech so far and find them very informative. We've covered the content related to how to build and strengthen local offshore wind. Later, we will have more insightful and deeper discussion on this regard. And we will dive into the topics. And now, let's welcome the following guests on stage. Firstly, the moderator for the panel discussion, Assistant Professor of National Taiwan University, Dr. Sun Han Yang. Project Manager E3, Mr. Paul Chen Huang. Executive Vice President of CSBC, Mr. Zhiming Chou. Sales and Business Development Manager of Deutsche Windtechnik, Mr. Hao Wei Chu. General Manager of Fischner, Mr. Markus Schuler. General Manager, Industrial Services and Cybersecurity of TÜV Rheinland, Mr. James Liu.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for continuing being here in this session. While developing the offshore wind for Taiwan, we will also need the local supply. And I believe for the audience here, still in this room, I believe we are all concerned on this issue. So that's actually the reason why we are here. And when we look at the local supply chain, we can see that there are many opportunities and challenges. So the key question is, how can we leverage these opportunities, overcome challenges in order to build and strengthen our offshore wind industry? So that will be the main topic of our discussion today. We just heard excellent, insightful speeches from all of our keynote speakers. And I'm happy that I'm honored that we can invite them to continue this discussion. So for the audience who may not be yet familiar with you, can you all have one sentence to give a short introduction of yourself? Itri, Chen, maybe we can start from you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm E3. No, just kidding. I'm Po Chen Huang from E3, represent the Thousand Winds Turbines office.
I'm Jiming Zhou from CSBC Corporation. I work in the shipyard for more than 30 years. And from the expertise from shipbuilding, I think we still can provide our technology to the offshore wind farm. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Hao Wei Chu, and I'm from Deutsche Windtechnik and focus on the business developments in APAC region. Thank you.
And my name is Markus Schüller. I'm the General Manager of Fichten Pacific Engineers, and we are an engineering consultancy based here in Taipei with our headquarters in Germany. And I've been in the renewable industry since 2006.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Liu, General Manager for Industry Service and Cyber Security at the TÜV Rheinland. We hope that with our global network, we can support the local supply chain and help them to become the international supply chain of the, as mentioned, the offshore wind power plant industry. Thank you.
Thank you all. So I think we can go straight to our first discussion point. Following all the keynotes, the offshore wind industry trend is obviously huge and offers many opportunities. And Borton, we just heard from you about an overview of the coming new Auction 3. So can we say something about that? What would be the link between the industry and the Auction 3?
Okay, so I think from the local supply chain's perspective, everyone will think about how big the market is. Like, we hope that the developer that you guys work with can get the auctions, can win the auctions, and get the development rights. And but from each, from my work, my office perspective, we would say it's very important for the local supply partners to understand whether this developer got the competitive to win these biddings, to win the right to get the developings. Because Taiwan have very scarce marine spatial, I would say, and it's quite crowded. And if everyone have followed up the regulations that just released last year, the sea-sensitive area is quite obvious that most of the development area will focus on the west coast, from Taichung, from the Miaoli area, and highly suggest that all the local partners can follow up this development process to understand the electricity's regulations, to expecting that whether your potential partners got the right or have the high percentage to win the biddings. I think it's very important for all the local partners to preparing your business strategy, I would say. So from the marine spatial perspective, and then to consider whether your potential partner can win the biddings.
Thank you. So you just mentioned that to support the locals to understand the overview. And then I guess now we can go to Mike, because you are already a member in the local industry. So I wonder, can you give us, the audiences here, and about the current status, what is already the capacity, the capability of this local industry, and what can they have for their future?
And for the foundation part, I think I can give my experience to everyone here. And for the round two, I think the government schedule for all the domestic partner, the time period is too short. And during the bidding process, also provide out the quotation to all the developer. Sometimes they, because of their finance decision not making, they still have to change the design. So the supplier now do not have enough time to do their preparation. And finally, I think for structure part, we only maintain part of it and not all of it. And that also because the design change, design flexibility is quite not flexible from the original input from Europe. And that's why when we come to the round three, I think that will be a breakthrough for the Taiwan indigenous program, because we do the design and we know how to fix and we know how to be flexible to all the local suppliers. We know their facility, we know their capacity, and then we can do more than just in round two. And I think that's only for the structure part. And for the other part, I think maybe Sure or anyone else can provide any comment. How the local industry already involved for the local content. I think for round three, we have to do some effort, not only for the local industry ourselves, and also have to be more open from the foreign developer. That's my opinion.
Questions to others about how you say about the as a foreign international player on this. And I guess we can ask Marcus to answer this, because I believe you have stand in a point where you help many different international companies to enter the industry here, and you also have collected many experiences aboard. So how can you say about that?
Yes, we did. So we support usually developers in preparing their bids, and also then later during the execution, or if there's an investment coming in. And in the contacts with the local industry, actually also in respect to this round three, it would be, I mean, the industry is definitely interested, but it's it could be actually a bit more interested, a bit more proactive in some points, and we would like to see the market players take a proactive lead in this localization, and not being it forced upon the project by the regulation rules. So that is probably true for some of the particular parts in the electrical scope.
Thank you. Anyone would like to add on this point? How, I mean, how can we see in terms of a localization, do we see any other challenges or opportunities that belong to the local company or belong to the international players in this industry? Yeah, thank you.
I think for us, when you just come to a localization or when we want to find the local technician to do the O&M service, I think that's pretty difficult part for us to find, for example, like electrical engineer, for example. Also, this all electrical engineers should be also have the good proficiency of the speaking English. So I think for the human resources also will be the one first tough, difficult topic for us for this point.
Thank you. And actually now I would like to zoom out a little bit because like Marcus, you just said we should think a bit proactive. So I want to go one step further. Even though the Taiwanese offshore wind industry is still a growing one and still has many things to learn, but if we think in the next 5 years, do we expect that we could already export some of our expertise to other Asia-Pacific regions? And I would like to leave this question to Hao-Wei because you mentioned that you have done extensive, numerous services globally. So what is your point of view on this?
Okay, thank you. I think I just because of the 10 minutes presentation, so my last slide of my presentation just show about this mentorship training program. So I think right now I can tell you for your information, we have each service team have the 3 team members, and we brought the 1 European technician who has the experiences from the Europe, and also to become the team lead in our service team. So far, for your information, we have 20 technicians, including 4 European technicians for that. And we have already reduced 1 technician back to the Europe, and we do believe in coming year, by end of next year, we foresee we can have 4 complete team with local Taiwanese full experiences, then have the capability of performance the work on its own. So at that time, we also looking for other countries upcoming offshore wind market, for example, like Korea, Japan, even Vietnam. And because of Taiwan's reduce the carbon footprint, also the culture-wise, we are looking to use our Taiwanese technician to become the team lead as well, to train the local team in other countries, also transfer our knowledge. And we do believe because Taiwan is as the leading country to start the offshore wind, and we have more practical experiences, can share this to other countries. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we are having a good vision for our future. Thanks. So when we are addressing building and strengthening the local industry trend, it will also be important to talk about the standard too, like James, you just mentioned in your presentation. And during your presentation, you gave us an overview of the entire certification structure. And here I would like to ask you, are there any particular international standards for offshore wind that actually need to be prioritized?
Okay, thank you. The main standard which cover wind power plant system is the IEC 61400 series. And part 1 of IEC 61400 is used for design of wind turbine by turbine manufacturer. Other parts of IEC 61400 also applied for other like electrical component and the support structure. The other is the DNV-GL relevant standard also provide the support, additional support, where the subject were not addressed in existing standard, such as for the offshore substation, subsea power cable, etc. The purpose is to provide a basis for design, manufacturing, installation, and operation. The site condition, wind turbine, wind power system, including such as electrical, mechanical, structure, and the control, protection, or grid compatibility are addressed. For the offshore wind power plant, attached great importance to the durability and the safety of the equipment, component and structure. In particular, as I just presented, the condition of the condition of wind farm in the Taiwan Strait are different from those in Europe. They are challenged by factors such as typhoon and earthquake, and the risk they faced are actually very high. So the Taiwan authority, the BSMI stated regulation, as I just mentioned, for the additional assessment for the such kind of external condition according to the standard to be taken into account in design for project certification. So it is very important the supply chain should meet the necessary standard and regulation. So, and just as I mentioned from our experience, the Taiwan manufacturer still need more time and experience to improve their manufacturing, and quality and efficiency. And in addition to the underwater foundation, there are other critical development items for the local content requirement, such as the wind power facility and also the wind turbine component. A wide range of products are still needed to comply with relevant standards. So for local manufacturer, to attain and maintain the quality certificate can take a lot of effort and time. But the certificate demonstrates to the buyer which the supplier or its product comply with a certain standard, that would be more convincing than if the supplier itself provide the assurance. So to be more competitive international, the local manufacturer suggest that it is necessary to identify the applicable international technical standard, product conformity assessment procedure, and also to be prepared for relevant certification on the need of their own product.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess we are now all, very clear about issues regarding international standard and certification. And we said that our goal is to building and then strengthening our local industry. So maybe we should also look at the strength we already have in Taiwan. In Taiwan, we actually have a very strong industry in terms of the high-tech and ICT integration. And these including, for example, like AR, VR, AI, communication, big data, etc., etc. So I have a question to everyone, all of you here, that do you think that we can expect something like that for the offshore industry too? Can we also adopt this high technology into our local wind energy industry? Anyone would like to say something first? Or maybe Mike?
Okay, I will do some example for a new building project for the Coast Guard and also for the customer, for Yangming, I guess. And because when the sailors are on board, and sometimes they will not be in duty and the machining is still running, and we add a lot of CCTV and also combined with some sensors. And those signal and those data can be processed and transferred to the onshore to monitoring how the ship is working. And that kind of technology needs different part of a supplier and to know what is the necessary sensor you want. And regarding this concept, I think for the offshore wind farm, and you need a steady electricity generation, and which component should be monitoring, and which sensor have to edit, what kind of data have to transmit it through what kind of satellite or different communication media, and that will be also have a base for the developer in your headquarters to monitoring your wind farm, how it's operating. And this kind of technology, I think, depends on how the developer want to monitoring the product and to provide a steady output. And different part of a sensor have to decide it from the provider itself and also from the different maker. I think if all these final goal for monitoring system have been decided, and different sensors and different communication media and tools and maybe software will be developed, and all this was done in one, they call it 战情室, how to say that, and you can monitor your wind farm very good, and provide your maybe logistic support, what kind of problem have happened, and our team how to do the O&M, and how fast they can achieve that repairing and make it recover. I think that is very important from my perspective of view from shipbuilding.
Some point here?
Yes, I fully agree with Mike's comment, and I think that there is a strength here in Taiwan when it comes to data collection and data evaluation, especially in condition monitoring and predictive maintenance. So there is definitely an opportunity upcoming there. We also should see that for the future also cybersecurity will become an increasing topic, and I think also there is a strength here in Taiwan. There is knowledge in the country, actually across all the sectors from the government to the industry, and I think there Taiwan can develop a leading role in the industry, also in the region, of course, for this part. And moving a little bit away from this IT, there are of course also other technologies I mentioned before: the battery energy storage system, energy management as a general, which will be the key, or which will play the key role in the future to integrate all the renewables in Taipower's system. So there will be developments necessary, and I think there is the capability in the country to do that and to become a front runner in this part, apart from the manufacturing industry itself.
Thank you. So maybe Bo-Chen, you have something with observation from the government side, then maybe you can have something here.
I would say to answer your questions, for example, like E-Trees, we also focus on the OEM. We also have the engineering team. We try to use the IoT technology, the data collection technology, in order to provide the very, I would say, just like a control room, and then we can like remote controlling the whole OEM process. We also like try to figuring out how the local technology can do it to do this job. And but I want to share my personal idea is because when you think about exporting Taiwan's current offshore technology to like Asia Pacific, like Japan, South Korea, or Vietnam, maybe the industry also need to think about you try to get the market to domestic market to get into a domestic market. And if you supply the domestic market, do you have any additional challenge or additional productivity to serve the other countries? Because right now we saw that Japan's also start their developing process, South Korea also starting, and Vietnam also trying to from tidal area to deep water areas. And does the local partner get ready? Does our products get ready to the developer would like to buy your products, and at the same time when they develop in the Japanese market, they also think about, hey, we still have Taiwan's project, and Taiwan's people can provide some additional products to us. I think this local partner need to think about, because local market, yeah, it's not that big compared to other countries, but does the local industry already their capacity can eat the domestic market and also eat the international market. That my personal view is that the local market may be local partner they can eat the domestic market, but maybe it's hard for them right now to go into the Japanese markets or South Korea's market, because we still need some time to cultivate our capability. Yeah. So it's like a running, you know, the other markets start running, but are you ready? And can you eat the domestic market in the same time and eat the international markets? Yeah, it's a question. I don't have answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we are having challenges here. But after all, after what you have said, I think that we do see some potentials to integrate different technologies into this local wind industry. And now moving on to the next question, because if we now, again, coming back to talk about the locals, and now the topic I want to raise is about the infrastructure, because part of the development of the industry trend may also associated with the infrastructure. And I believe that there are also areas which need some consideration or some development. So especially taking into account of the fact that inevitably we will move on to the floating offshore wind. So what can we do here? And maybe we can start from how you must need to rely on the infrastructure, isn't it?
I think from the thank you. From OEM perspective, normally, because right now the floating wind topic are coming up and people are really hot topic to discuss about it. And from OEM perspective, actually, we are more like the service provider who are a little bit back to wait other people what they are doing and what's the client's need. So from our perspective, we are more a little bit passive to wait until when the floating wind is more coming up and have more solid concept and then build successfully in the wind farm. Then we will find out to adapt ourselves to see how we can provide OEM service when the floating wind there. Yes.
James, do you have something to add here in terms of the infrastructure?
Uh,
Yes, in terms of how can we prioritize, in terms of the infrastructure, what would be the priority consideration if we want to further strengthen it for the offshore wind?
For the local supply chain, I think if the local supply chain can catch up the opportunity to invest the manufacturing facility to enhance their capability and also to accelerate their learning curve, also to maintain and retain and attain and maintain the certification on the quality and safety performance. I think that we can see that Taiwan local supply chain has opportunity to be better and to enter the international the market.
Markus, I think.
Yes, I think something very concrete regarding the infrastructure is that there are known bottlenecks still now during round 2 that should be resolved for round 3, and that are known and also were raised this morning by Siemens Gamesa, for example, that there are some bottlenecks in the Taichung harbor which directly come to infrastructure when you want to transport the nacelles to the quayside and bring them to either the storage area or for the installation to offshore. So these are absolute concrete issues.
Yes.
And there are also some general things when I think of the electrical scope I presented before on. when it comes to the actual testing of equipment with these voltages that may be relevant for the offshore system. There are currently no testing, there's not the proper and the right testing equipment in Taiwan available right now. So there are basically three testing organizations that can do that according to TPC standards, and they don't have the equipment to perform these tests for equipment that in the best case is of course produced in Taiwan. And that is another example for long-term planning that needs to be considered if you want to achieve this high local content.
Very good point. And Mike, do you have some thoughts that can share with us?
I think for the existing round 2, most of the wind farm was a fixed type. And the current harbor status, I think, is still the same. But however, when we go to round 3, and for the round 2, the existing infrastructure, we still have to do some improvement. But when we go to round 3, it's quite different because floating type now is step in. And floating type actually is a quite huge structure at the harbor side. And those harbor side, when you do the launching, if the draft of the limitation from the harbor is not deep enough, then we will have problem. So that's why we provide our tighter float. During the launching, the light ship, the draft may be only 8 meters. And compared to PPI, because they don't have the pontoon at the bottom, so the draft will be deeper, maybe go to 12 meters, and that will maybe not available in the Kaohsiung Harbor. Maybe available in Taipei, but Taipei, they don't have a dry dock. So a lot of different situations now we are facing for the floating type will be necessary to improve the harbor infrastructure at this moment. And the next one is the floating type. The wind turbine probably have to be installed at the harbor side or different location near the shore, but not in the wind farm. And for this purpose, in Kaohsiung, if we install the tower, then the height probably will be 130 meters. And when we install the nacelle and blade, almost 200 meters. And that's Xiaogang Jichang, Kaohsiung Airport. And there's a fly zone limitation. So that one is also have to be improved. And this kind of situation, I'm not sure if it will be happen in Taichung Port or Taipei Port, or even the Xingdao Port or Anping Port. This kind of a situation have to do some invest, maybe from the Jiaozhongbu or maybe from Hangang, something like that. And the next one is the crane capacity, because most of the heavy part was lifting from the TIV at the wind farm for round 2. But the round 3 for floating type may be installed from the quayside, from the harbor. So part of the lifting capacity with enough outreach for the height and should be also invested, maybe by the port or maybe by the developer and rent the facility for maybe 20 years. And after the Taiwan's industry was almost saturation, and they can use this port facility and to import to the Asian Pacific. I think these two reasons have to be, these two factors have to be improved. And next one is the floating type. A lot of anchoring system. Maybe one floater, we need maybe 3,000 meters long cable, and also the anchor. Where to storage this, the anchor, and also the chain. And so we need to think about the deeper, and we have to think about higher, and also we need a big area. So that's three-dimensional factor, I think, for next few years for the floating type, and which will be very competitive for, I think, in Taiwan, and have to be improved.
Thank you. So it seems like we have already some challenges already in round 2 regarding like transportation, and now we also have the gap that need to bridge from the fixed type foundation to the floating type foundation. Thank you. And anyone would like to share their thought on this particular point?
Yeah, I would say the government definitely have solved the port issues. Yeah, it's quite crowded, and in the second phase we saw different developers they still need to managing the small areas in Taichung harbors, and then I think the pressure from the market is quite clear that okay, we want to go to the next stage technology, the floating technology. But it's quite obvious that harbor in Taichung Harbor have not enough area. So yeah, it's a big issue for the government. They still need to figuring out and provide a new maybe planning for phase 3. I don't know, but from I know, yeah, this voice they have got it, and it's very hard. It's keep going, keep negotiating for the land area, and also that you mentioned the height. For the floating, the aviation concern, yeah, I right now I don't know how to solve it, but when you think about Taichung harbors, Qinchuangang Air Force is a very big issue. However, we know that the land in Qinchuangang Air Force Base is quite high. It's a Taidi, sorry, I don't know how to speak in English, Taidi. So maybe there's some kind of bargaining powers, bargaining areas that, okay, the air base is quite high, so from the harbor's perspective, the wind farm won't influence you too much. Yeah, and if we go to the Taipei harbors, yeah, the Taoyuan's this 10 nautical miles areas probably also will influence the Danstraits river mouth over there. So yeah, if we really want to push the floating, talking with Minister of Transportation is also the key issues. However, I also curious about how the market think about the area, the correct area for the floating foundation. The developer, they will choose, okay, I will pick this area for floating, because this is my personal opinions, I think within the 12 nautical miles territorial sea, we don't have, maybe we only have, not every place is feasible for floating. So it's a good question that we also can think about. How big is the floating market here in Taiwan? Yeah.
Thank you. So time is ticking, so I would like to go to our last point, because I think all of you mentioned about the global collaboration. That is an important point to improve and strengthen the wind industry. So as a final conclusion, I would like to give some recommendations for those people who want to, for those industrial players who are considering entering Asia Pacific market. Can you share why Taiwan is an important strategic location or market for their priority consideration? Howard?
Yeah, I think all the speaker already mentioned a little bit about that. Taiwan is the leading country who already developed the offshore wind, and we start earlier, and how we can run fast when the other country just also start recently. So I think in our company, I think we are treating Taiwan as the harbor for the APEC region. We would like to transfer the people, our knowledge, everything. We will store everything in Taiwan, and then to set up Taiwan to transport to the APEC region. So I think the government's policy supports is the key points, and then how we can build up the localization could be also being driven by the local policy. Yes.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yes, I mean, definitely Taiwan is the front runner in the region, and that is the biggest advantage. So the experience has been built up until now. It will be further developed. So there will be personal capacities. There will be the industrial capacities. There's then the experience in the country, and that's definitely what you need for the further development in the future. And there's also a very a good, highly skilled engineering labor force and also general labor force available here. So I think that's a very good basis for also for the future success. But of course, cost efficiency is the key target that will determine in the end how to expand into the region.
Thank you. Mike, do you have any words to the industry players?
Yes, I think for our local team for the past years, and basically because most of developers, they find the tier one first, and the tier one will find their subcontractor, and different developer, they will ask him for the same, and that caused some consequences. This local supplier, they compete with each other. And if this kind of situation also still happen when you try to step out the Taiwan and approaching the APEC, I think the national team have to be teamed up. And we have to find some team leaders and to avoid this kind of a situation which just happened and we are facing for the past years. And actually, I think even for the OEM and EPCI, now we also have some local company that now are doing this. And at this moment, maybe this is a new business. We don't have the expertise, we don't have the specialists, we don't have the business, and we don't have the legal people to how to deal with all these items. And however, when we introduce this kind of technology and also business code, and we have to train our local people here. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, how deep our technology can be implemented locally, then the national team will be meaningful. And this kind of a policy, if it can have some government to team up, who will be the tier one for different area. I think that will be easier, that will be more feasible for Taiwan to step in the APEC area. Otherwise, I think still those existing players, they will go to Asia area. They still do the same. And how can Taiwan to compete with them? So I think that's one issue we have to face, and that is the fact. And maybe it's cruel, but I think we have to cooperate together. Just like General Liu said, we have a global, right? Everyone had to make sure that even I'm developed from Europe, I will still treat local team as my team. And we share every information. Then we can do this achievable. Otherwise, it will be not practical, I think.
Thank you. So Mike made some suggestions to the government, but maybe we leave the last words to Bo-Chen. So what would you say, the words to the industrial players? What would you talk to them if they want to enter the Taiwanese industry?
Okay, first I need to announce that I'm not representing the government.
Yeah,
we just E3, and we support providing some kind of policy analysis for them. But the personal suggestion will say showing your flexibility, your management team's flexibility. That because in Taiwan in the past 10 years we built up this offshore wind sectors, and before that no one have experience. Even though the partners or international friends, they don't know how to build the offshore wind farm in Taiwan. However, you looking back in this 5 to 8 years, everyone figuring out, we work with the governments and private sector work closely and finding this outcome. And I would say it's a good show. How to say? It's very good branding strategy, like to show that your management team is very good to have very good high flexibility to manage this very harsh markets or administration's framework. And so, yeah, Taiwan's keep going, keep writing histories, writing records, and through this process, all the outcomes, I think, is very good pressures for the developers or international friends to sharing, and when they want to get into like Asia Pacific other markets, yeah, flexibility.
Yes, thank you, Burton. So since we are running out of time, so I would like to close this panel discussion. So what we have discussed, we mentioned that we see already there are capability here. We have started already the industry. There are already trained people here, but we also need more people from other areas. Like and we see that in terms of the infrastructure, there are some gaps to bridge, and there are also some challenges we have to overcome if we want to move from the fixed foundation to the floating foundation. So I believe that for all of us, we have learned a lot today, and I would like to thank you all for attending this session. Thank you all for joining this discussion. And as the final remark, I know that there are some tea and coffee prepared outside at the corridor. So thank you all for today's time, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for our panel members and our moderator for the great discussion. Please remain on the stage. I am sure our audience also find it very insightful. To wrap up the afternoon section, let's take a group photo of our panelists and moderator. And I would also like to invite David Chiang, the representative of German Offshore-Wind Initiative in Taiwan, to join the group photo. 请现场的摄影师和媒体就定位，我们即将进行大合照。Is everyone ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's also take a picture with our right thumb up. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. And please return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance today. We have discussed several topics regarding the offshore wind industries. On behalf of the organizer, I sincerely thank you for your participation. The summit has now ended successfully. We have prepared some refreshment at the corridor. Please feel free to stay a little bit longer to network with the speakers and other participants. Hope you all had a good time. Thank you.